Sup, dudes? What is going down in Groovetown? It's time for another Mad Poet show. I think I got a little too much smoke in here. It's starting to dissipate a little. You may notice I got some new lights over here and over here. Actually, not new lights, but I reconfigured my front lights and I freed up a few. And it's kind of cool getting my extra stuff going in there. So we'll see how that all flows for us tonight. We are playing my second album. This one's called Infinity Minus One, a title inspired by Douglas Adams's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The number Infinity Minus One is an important one in that mythos, so to speak. So, interestingly, the heavy metal and heavy fog. I like that. That's good. I knew I was going to like you, man. I knew I was going to like you. The title of my next song is also inspired by the... oh, Sarah, hey, I hope you stick around because this album has a song dedicated to you on it. Coming up in 2 or 3 more songs-ish. Cool. Always good to have Miss Sarah Valendi Azofefa around. And if you don't have 16 letters in your last name, then you're just boring. So there you go. My Sarah's not boring. However, there's a bigger number, and it's the title of my next song. And for those who are very familiar with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they will know the significance of this number. It's 2 to the power of 276,709. Looks like we got some more people cruising into the show. We got Wango Tango time in here. Looks like we got Therese. Welcome everybody, everyone in the chat, everyone not in the chat. Welcome to the show. Just having a bit of fun here, because that's what we do. Now, I don't know if my awesome daughter Renee was able to make it tonight, but this album actually has 2 songs dedicated on, which I occasionally do. My very first album I put out in 2004. I know Therese is a huge fan of that album, which of course I greatly appreciate. And that whole album was dedicated to my daughter. And then it was like 15 years later, I think, that I did my second album. And that's this, Infinity Minus One. And on this one, I put a lot of songs in here named after Hitchhiker's Guide and Red Dwarf. And because this was kind of a big monumental time for my musical progression, so to speak, because I knew that I was going to go crazy with music and do a ton of albums after this, which I did. I wanted to recognize my daughter and Sarah on this one. So this next song is dedicated to Renee. I hope you're out there. If not, no problem. You're still the most awesome daughter ever, and you just got stuff going on. But this one's going out to Renee. This piece is called Echoes of the Future. And Red Dwarf fans will definitely know what that means. Okay, so I just realized. Okay, there we got it. So I actually had the wrong sheet music up. I have two versions of this, and I realized like part way through that I'm actually looking at the right one. So I'm going to switch these over. Fortunately. Okay. I think I'm in the right place now. Let me just fiddle faddle here for a moment. Oh, look at that. That song would have been a lot easier to play had I been looking at the correct information. Something about that whole correct information thing, I don't know. Whatever. Some people think it's important, I guess. Maybe I'm one of them. So, all right. So dramatic. I'm a dramatic person, it's so true. I'm a sweaty person. That's for sure. It's not to say it's actually cooled off a bit over here, but I am moving around a bit, so part of the gig. I don't mind. I get sweaty often. I'll probably exercise when I'm done, so we're all good. But since Sarah's talking, it's appropriate. This next song is for her. So I did the 2 songs in a row to my favorite ladies, my daughter and my lovely Miss Sarah. I don't often say the word wife because I just hate that word. I think it's a stupid word, but unfortunately, Sarah's kind of the same on that. So we match up with a lot of that stuff. Marriage is stupid. The terms husband and wife are stupid, but Sarah's awesome, and that's the important part. I don't care about the marriage. I got the girl, so I'm good. And of course, keeping in our Red Dwarf vein, this song is called Smeg. And clearly in the light programming phase, I forgot to program some of the front lights in that one. It's kind of in the dark on that one a bit. But I'll take note of that for after the show, and I'll put those in for the next time I play this. I mentioned last week that I am planning, and I'm slowly working toward, I don't have an estimated date for this, but I'm planning to do, I'm setting up 28 albums to have light shows, and I still have a lot of programming to do to get there. And once that's done, I'm gonna do 2 nonstop weeks of 2 shows a day, 28 different albums, doing noon and 8 o'clock Pacific time for 14 days straight. That should just be, just to see what happens, just for fun. So this is definitely on there, and yeah, I've been programming where I can to get those lights up and running. It's going to be a little while. It's an awful lot of light programming to do. So we don't know when that's going to happen, but it is on the docket. So thank you for the compliments. I see the high energy. This is a bit of a high energy album. I got some lower pace stuff like that, parts of that last song, but overall this is a pretty high energy album. And I'm kind of a high energy little guy. Kind of do that high energy thing. So that's me, I like it. I don't like being boring, because that's not me. So let's not be boring. This next song, we're actually moving away from the Hitchhiker's Guide and Red Dwarf titles, but we're definitely kicking it up to some high intensity, high energy stuff. What key are we moving? We're doing some more E minor stuff here. This is called The Darkest Hour. right. Thank you very much, Tom, for throwing the money on stage. Much appreciated. Yes, I didn't actually see your entire question. I can get it here. I think if I'm able to get into this, so I want to be able to answer that question. I just saw it was something about a studio album. Oh, where's the thing and the stuff? See, I feel like I'm on the spot all of a sudden. I'm like, I need to go fast, and I probably don't. That's not it. Oh, was there a studio drummer? No, these drums, in fact, are programmed. These when I do my music, I generally my first album had 2 studio drummers. I had Doc, who's normally here. He's actually recording drums tonight, and I had a guy named Braden McGraw, and they were both just wonderful in the studio. They're very professional, very fun people to play music with, and I love playing music with in a live scenario with live musicians, the full meal deal. It's freaking awesome. But I just got to a point where too many musicians were not showing up, and too many musicians would show up not prepared, or a lot of musicians show up drunk or high and unable to play their parts. And I just started realizing, hey, if I do music without vocalists, I can replace all the things I can't do with computer programs. And I know some, particularly I've had some drummers be very offended by that. Fortunately, Doc is awesome, and he's not. But it's like, if you don't want... A lot of drummers, and again, Doc is an exception, but a lot of drummers feel like we're cheating when we do this. And it's like, if you want real drummers, show up. The drummers are the ones who have actually pushed people to use drum samples, because so many drummers don't show up. So many bass players don't show up. There are great bass samplers out there. Really, the only instruments that are not effectively sampled so far are vocals and certain types of guitar. Some guitar can actually be sampled very effectively. And like depending on the type, in this type of music, you wouldn't be able to pull it off with samples, but the samples are getting better. So musicians are more and more replaceable, and if they don't want to be replaced, they need to start doing their thing. Because it is so much better when you have this whole band full of people. It's an amazing feeling. But I like making music, and I'm going to make music, so that's what happens there. So the fact that you asked if that was a real drummer, that makes me feel very good. It means I did a decent job programming drums, and I feel like the albums I've done subsequent to this, I've gotten better and better at programming drums. And it's interesting to me, just playing through this stuff here, how my process has changed over time. My first album was written just here and there. I would, a lot of it was written when I was in the military, so I was bouncing around. My daughter was born at the time. I had some grandparents cack off. And so, all of these different things happen in different locations and different times. And so that's kind of that conglomeration of things. And then with this second album, I moved into writing all of my music in sheet music. And it's just a very, very different process. And then over the course of, 64 albums since this, that process has refined and changed and moved to different things. So I get all kinds of different ideas. And so, looking at this sheet music and comparing it to the way I create sheet music now is very, very fascinating for me. And, playing through these songs and knowing how differently I create music now, so for example, I have certain kinds of modulations I do in this, certain kinds of what we call relative modulations that are very effective. And they have a very good feel to them. I was like, oh yeah, I don't do that as much anymore. But it really worked for what I was doing here at the time. So that's great. It's fun stuff. So yeah, it's very interesting to me just kind of looking at this. And I was working with one of my students just the other day, and he's a composition student, so he's learning to write music, and he was asking about how I approach this stuff, like what I'm thinking about when I compose. So I was going through some of the stuff that I do, and I said, one of the things is, I'll open up the sheet music for an album, and I'll just be like, where in the hell did that come from? I just look at all the sheet music, I'm like, how did I do all that? I mean, I understand all the music theory and everything, obviously, but I'm just like, damn, where'd that come from? It's cool. So, yeah. And if anyone, great drummers are very hard to find. Yeah, true. And a good drummer doesn't always show up. A great drummer does. And when you have a drummer that always shows up and does their parts, that is, and that's true of really, I want to say musicians, but it's not, good people. People who do what they say they're going to do are hard to find. So you guys should all be the people who do what you say you're going to do. Be a person of your word. It's a good way to go. I try to do that in my personal life, and I hope that I achieve that. This is how we do our thing. So we're going to slow it down a little bit. Get off my little musician suck diatribe here and actually make some music and do what I say musicians should do. Get a little more smoke flowing. We're going to slow it down a little bit, go to some clean tone on the old guitar here. I'm going to hit a little D minor action. I'm kind of playing bluesy there. This is really not a bluesy piece, but this is one, I say the title is lightly inspired by Red Dwarf, Hitchhiker's Guide type stuff. It doesn't actually come from any of that, but I love sci-fi. I love, of course, those shows and books. I love Heinlein. There's so much great sci-fi out there. And in sci-fi, we always talk about parallel universes. Oh, we're over here, and then we pop, I'm in a parallel universe, and now my eyes are green, and now I'm in a different parallel universe, and my elbow's on my butt, or whatever. And I was like, okay, parallel universes, that's cool, but what about perpendicular universes? short sci-fi flick. The TV series is called Dust, and the particular episode is titled Time. Okay. I am not familiar with that. I will have to check it out. I don't watch a lot of shows, but I will put that one on the list. Time. And the show is called Dust. Yeah, completely new. If Decipher Tom, the word in my mind is prediction, but that's not suggestion. And it's probably worth my time. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I do like the slowing down kind of thing. It's fun. But we're not going to keep doing that because we're gonna light it up here. Take it up to about 140 beats a minute. Jump back into some E minor. This is song 7 of the evening. For those who may be coming in a little after the fact, we are playing my second album of 64 that have been published, going way back to a few years ago. The album is called Infinity Minus One. This particular song title has no interesting sci-fi reference like some of them do, but it is one of my favorite song titles. The first rule of Tautology Club is the first rule of Tautology Club. Sounds like Doc may not have been having the best time in the studio tonight. I'm sorry to hear that, Doc. That sucks. That's, just before you showed up in chat, I was talking about how irresponsible musicians generally are. And then I said it's not just musicians, it's also, people. Sounds like you're not having the best time in the studio. I'm guessing we had an ill-prepared engineer. That happens all the freaking time. And that's really what led me to this. I realized that if I become, and this is kind of egotistical, but it's like if I do everything, I don't got to worry about anything. And everything that happens is my fault. Everything that goes right is my credit. And I love playing with the band. It's great. Like when I used to play with the Hades Machine, oh man, we had such a kick. That band was just so much fun to play with. And I've played with some other bands and had good times and bad times. But yeah, sometimes you just got to do it yourself, and it sucks. So thank you for the compliment about me being on fire. Unfortunately, nothing has caught on fire. We went, just that one. It was only the one time. So, out of all the shows I've done, really had the one fire. Not bad. Now this next song, I actually think this title was kind of inspired by Tom Petty, though the song sounds not remotely Tom Petty-ish. The song was not inspired by him at all. It was just, the song really wasn't inspired by anything, but because he has a song called Learning to Fly. And that song title is very, very common. Pink Floyd's got a song called Learning to Fly. They're all over the place. But I'm like, why is everyone trying to learn to fly? No one's ever going to do that. But we're all going to fall sometime. That's what we need to learn how to do so we can do it well and pick ourselves up. This song is called Learning to Fall. Since Doc's not having the best night of all time, I'm going to dedicate this particular performance of this song to our good friend, Mr. Doc. Learning to Fall. Oh, there, I finally did it. Had the wrong window activated. It's always when I'm pausing for effect, just about to play a song with meaning, that I totally screw it up and learn to fall. we got some stuff, some questions over here. Look at me go, screwing things up. Hey, thanks, Doc. What are you guys talking about over here? Rough day at work. Oh, wait, you're retired. Nice. I'm glad that you guys are liking the gig. I'm enjoying it. This is going pretty well. I was a little not quite sure how this one was going to go. I have played this in the online setting before, but it's so different from my current work. I was like, yeah, how's this one going to roll? And I'm never quite sure. But I feel like this is going well. I'm pleased with what's going on here. Oh yeah, I forgot to answer the non-purple. It is purple. This is in fact my lightest purple shirt. And I think it's just the way that the lights are hitting it. So it's kind of a light lavender color. So it's showing up as gray. Apologies. We need to attend the shenanigans. Yeah, I haven't played that one for a while. That's a fun album to play. That album has a song dedicated to my buddy Tadashi, who, not surprisingly, with that name, is an Asian gentleman, and he is just a super cool guy. When Tadashi and I met, we just bonded like wood glue. We just started getting along instantly, and he's a small gentleman even for an Asian. So I wrote him a song called "Molecular Terrorism," which wasn't really a reference to his stature, but it worked out well. Kind of like when I did permanent cognitive damage category and dedicated it to my grandfather who died of Alzheimer. I wasn't really thinking that at the time. I was like, that kind of works. Because I'm just kind of a twisted dude like that. So yes, it is a purple shirt. I do need to do attending the shenanigans. Now that I have these 4 lights in, I have to do a slight reprogramming of every album I do. But it's not tough. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to get that stuff in there. So yeah, that'll have to be on the list soon. That's always a fun album to play. I enjoy that one quite a bit. I'm kind of fortunate in that I really enjoy almost all of the music that I've done. And one thing that as a musician, I have had the attitude that when I produce music, I want it to be music that I would enjoy listening to. The only exception to this is the few times that I have been, I'm going to put this in quotes, hired to do music, which has been, I've done a film score and a couple of like web series episodes, a couple of previews for very small time films. I've never actually been paid I did a television show that never aired. I've never been paid for any of it. And I think only 2 of them I actually volunteered to do for free. So, but that's, when you're an amateur film composer, there's not a lot of money to be made in it. So, but yeah, and like even most of that, I really like the work that I did. Like the couple of film previews I did, I think were some of my better work in the kind of more orchestral arena. The documentary that I scored, I was not happy with. It was the first score I ever did, so that's not surprising. But even at that, it's a documentary about the dating life in the Seattle, Western Washington area. And it's, when I did like the web series I did was kind of basically, futuristic Dungeons and Dragons, modern Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. You got like wizards doing bar battles and stuff. That's right up my alley, But when I'm writing music to introduce a dating coach, I'm just like, using major keys and I'm bored out of my mind. I'm like, oh, this music just sucks. There's nothing, nobody's gonna die in this. It's not mean. It's not fun. Come on, get your head in the game, guys. So anyway, so aside from a few things, the music that I have written for myself, I really enjoy. And that's something I think that musicians should strive for. Write music that you will enjoy. This is all instrumental rock. This is not ever going to have mainstream popularity. This is not the kind of music that does that, but it's the kind of music I like, and that means there are going to be other people out there. Because no matter how special your parents told you were, you're not one of a kind, and other people like the same things you like. So this music is written for that group of people that like instrumental rock, and thanks for being here. And yes, the octopus says, of course, we've all had those dreams that you wake up and you're like, oh, God, I feel like that means something. And then all of a sudden, something happens that day and it reminds you of the dream. Oh, it was like a prophetic dream. But you know, one thing we don't think about as much, let me get my window activated correctly here. One thing we don't think about as much, prophetic nightmares. Thanks for the $5. Greatly appreciate it. At all times. Thank you, thank you. Well, thank you all for coming to the show tonight. We are moving into the last song of the evening, song number 10 of my second album of 64. I've had a good time tonight. Hopefully you guys had a good time as well. I feel like this has been a fairly fun show. I think my performances were, decent. The new lights seem to be working. I think it's going all right. So yes, thank you one and all. Of course, I'm the Mad Poet. You are an audience. Yada, yada. You know the story. If anyone's new, well, then you don't know the story. But I'll tell you more of it at the end of the show. This last song of the evening. Gonna kick it up. Gonna do some E minor, 135 beats a minute. This is a fun one. I really enjoy it. It is called 1,000 Fears. All right, the Gangly Gangsters, that's our show for tonight. Looks like some of you might have been having some tech troubles. I don't know if that was on my end or not. My internet has been a touch on the spotty side today, so it's possible that was coming from me. Harry, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Yeah, correct. Future Echoes. That song, Echoes of the Future, came from Red Dwarf. And that is exactly what you guys are experiencing. So yes, for everyone who may not be aware, I am the Mad Poet. You are an audience. Thank you very much for coming in. If anyone is so inclined, feel free to go to themadpoet.net. All of my albums are available there. There are links to Bandcamp, where you can purchase any of my albums on a pay-what-you-can basis. There are links to YouTube, where all of my albums are available. Also, all of the YouTube videos are embedded in the website, so you can watch them right there. And of course, I will be back here next Friday, as I am every Friday, streaming on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and I think 8 other sites, something like that. I got a list of them somewhere. Thank you very much for the compliments. Thank you very much for being here, and I will see you all